And our speaker is Dr. Christian Berthold. His areas of expertise cover projects in strategy formulation, strategy development, and profiling of universities. He advises administrations of institutions, of ministries, also local governments, and works with a lot of teams in various topics like restructuring educational institutions and developing their new profiles. And the list of areas of work is very long. It's in planning, in management, in control and budgeting, organizational and internal structures, and demographic change. I'm very pleased to offer you the floor.
Thank you very much, Aurelia. First of all, as you can see, I'm from a consultancy, so I'm an entrepreneur, and now I've got a lot of new ideas for a new business scale from Andre. So thank you very much, Andre, for this inspiring presentation. Unfortunately, I'm asked to change completely the subject, and I'm afraid it's not such interesting, however, like his crime scene stories. I have 3 chapters, just very shortly mentioning some global trends for running and driving internationalization. Then my most loved subject, strategy building in higher education, and then bring that to internationalization and trying to discuss with you some aspects of setting up internationalization strategies. Probably global trends of higher education have already been mentioned. I will only come back to two very few aspects. Of course, we have this globalization and student mobility development. Now we see 4.5 million students internationally mobile, and some predictors says we have in 15 years we will see 7 million mobile students on the world, and mostly the mobile ones are the most qualified ones normally. You can state. And of course we have all the policy of the European Union with the European higher education area and research area and everything around that. I think that is quite clear. You mentioned that I worked for some years with demographic change in Germany and with the influence of demographic change to higher education, which is in Germany a big issue in a lot of European countries. And especially in the eastern part of Germany, we had a dramatic plummeting of the enrollment numbers first of all, we had an enormous, strictly decline of birth rates directly in 1990 after reunification. The people in the eastern part of Germany directly stopped, so to say, the production, because they were in the German Democratic Republic. They were used to produce the first children with 20 years, and that was not common in Western Germany. And directly after reunification, birth rate stopped. And 20 years later, of course, in the eastern part of Germany, at the entrance of the university, you can see the results. Students were missing, and so we were dealing with that kind of challenges. And of course, universities are then looking for international students to fill in the places. The biggest numbers are coming from Asia, from China, India, Korea, South Korea. They account for 50% of all the international mobile students. And if I'm right, Indian states, they want to educate 250 million academics. So there's still some room for offering study places for Indians. Hopefully with 2 certificates. Okay, demographic change is in Germany. It now differs a little bit. In some regions, birth rates are increasing now, but what we see is that in the rural areas, the problems will be big, and it will stay, or will become bigger and bigger, and in the centers, the application numbers are quite stable or even growing. But if you're like some universities are sitting at the border or at the coast, there is one close to Netherlands and in Wilhelmshaven, very at the North Sea, and 50% of your surroundings is in water, then you see demographic problems very tough. Public policy, government strategies increase the number of foreign students. In Germany, we have the case that we have a lack of qualified workers, especially in engineering, and therefore government is heavily asking for more international students, for example. And then we have the founding system, which is in a big point, because you see very different systems and philosophies about fee-driven or not. You know, in Germany we abolished tuition fees in the public system, so it's free to study for all, even for the internationals. And in UK it's quite different. It's quite fees are playing an important role, although it's mostly public. And then if you are running private institutions, of course you have a completely different philosophy. Who from you is coming from a private or representing a private university? One. From Lithuania? Okay. So the big majority is public, I guess. But still, even in the public system, tuition fees are playing an important role. Like that? Okay. Okay.
You know, when you're holding it,
okay. Yeah, you did very well. I saw that. I have to discipline myself. Okay. But my question was about tuition fees. Are tuition fees playing in your institutional strategy an important role? Mostly yes. Yes. Okay. Okay. In this picture is combining two things. This is coming from Times Higher Education ranking, only Europe institutions. It is showing you the top 50 institutions in Europe. And the question is how directly it is linked to the internationalization scores in the ranking, in Times Higher ranking. So you can see that in the top institutions, it's close. High scores in internationalization and being the good ones in Europe. But on the right side, it is not so directly linked. So some of them have only 50 scores here in internationalization, but are still among the top universities in Europe. So it's not so directly linked always as you might probably assume. This one is probably Oxford and Cambridge, I think, and LSE. I think these are the three there. Okay. Coming to strategy in higher education. Higher education institutions are not in the straight way companies, but what someone called Mintzberg called professional bureaucracies. And that's creating, or that is describing a different kind of institution where you have not a clear hierarchy of competences. The president is not the smartest guy at the top of the institution normally, only in very few cases, because he is or she is competent basically in her own or his own subject. And this creates a challenge for these kinds of institutions, that you have people in these central units who are very, very competent in their subject, and the people on the top management are not able to do what they should do in the other units. And that creates some challenges in managing these kinds of institutions. That gives the people in the decentral units more power, and they have to be involved much more in the strategy building and in the complete approach of steering that institutions. A quite, in a way, funny point is that all higher education institutions in the world don't want to be managed by managers. They want to be managed by professors. and by researchers. And professors normally are hired by criteria of being strong in research and teaching, and not still in managing. That is not the selection criteria for professors. The professors in the room excluded, of course. But normally it's not the point. The professors are becoming good managers by doing the job, by being trained, by going to some training programs. And this creates some challenges in managing higher education institutions. Something about strategies. Strategies, if you're talking about strategies, it is in the core, it is about decision. Strategies are in a way decisions, or they are anticipated decisions, or they are delivering criteria for future decisions. These are is a crucial point of strategies. And decisions, by their character, have a non-rational core. Otherwise, it was math. It were an algorithm. You can just calculate it. A decision has in its entire core some non-rational rest, which makes it a little bit more complicated. That explains why the strategies and the decisions represented by strategies are not directly dropping out from your data analysis. We are doing all this kind of SWOT analysis and however we call it, but at the end it's not just the decision coming directly out of that, because take that very simple example. You have, let's say, in the Department of Sociology being very weak by your performance analysis and your data work, and you see they don't have students, they don't publish, they don't get the awards, they have no reputation. And the very first idea is close them down, but some other guy from your university may come up with the argument that maybe sociology is an important subject in the future, and maybe it's not a good idea to close them down, but to invest and make them strong again. So the decision is not coming from the performance data, but it's coming from the weight you give on the criteria, or let's say on the frame of criteria you use. That makes it a little bit more complicated coming to your own strategies. And if it's true that the president is not able to realize the strategies and needing all the colleagues, then of course he or she has to work for acceptance and has to use the expertise of the colleagues in the faculties, in the other departments. I have a small picture for that. And I learned that at the top here is something about balancing, and therefore I created this kind of graph. I think higher education management is about balancing. The first thing you need is, of course, managing has something to do with decision making. Secondly, you need the expertise because you are working in a quite complicated area, complex area as well. And thirdly, you need the acceptance of the colleagues who should realize your strategies and your plans and concepts. And that has to be brought into a balance. If you spend too much time for creating acceptance, then you will never come to decisions. I've had a lot of projects where presidents started with that approach, first working for the acceptance, and then at the end they never came out of the discussions with the colleagues. And not taking enough effort to the expertise and to be well informed about what you are deciding is also a big mistake. So that has to be brought into the balance by management. So in a way, you have to convince your colleagues to work with you and to accept the strategy you are formulating. The point now is that all the methods you might use to convince your colleagues might help to create the acceptance. And therefore, you need these good stories, the strong rationals, although, as I mentioned, it's about decisions, and decisions are in the core not strictly rational. But you, as you are working in a university, you need, of course, rational arguments. You can't argue, I just feel. That is not the proper approach in that environment. So at the end, they can say strategy is not right, it becomes right, because the more you make the people believe that's the right way to go, the more likely it is that you will be successful and that your strategy is right or becomes right. So that makes it a little bit more complicated in that kind of organizations like universities, which are called professional bureaucracies. What is at the end of a strategy in terms of material, of paper? I would say it is a clear set of targets, a clear understanding where we want to go, where is our orders, our aims to meet. It is a description how we meet the targets, how we follow that way. And it shows, in the best case, the indicators and measures how far we reach the targets. Today, when we're talking about new public management, we are normally hoping that we are not directly ordering the people how they should follow the targets and try to reach them, but not defining the means and instruments, but giving a bit of autonomy to them, or a bit of room to make their own decisions, because they are normally better informed and know better how to reach that. Okay, and if this process in which you create that is done in a way that faculty and administration feel more involved, then chances will increase, as I mentioned. And again, well-informed strategies are often stronger than simple ones, although the simple ones can be as good as others. Therefore, I like the term of the story, the strategic story, to have a very simple idea why we have to go there, and the easier that story is, the easier it is to convince the colleagues. But it's good if you can also explain it a little bit more, not only easy. But to explain a strategy within 30 seconds is fine, but being able to talk in half an hour, even more, is also quite good. Okay. That was about strategy management. Any questions in the moment to that? Any objections? Do you believe so far? Okay. Coming back to the difference between private and public. I'm coming from the German system, so we have this funny idea that university education should be for nothing, should be for free. And in that institution, the perspective on internationalization is quite different than, let's say, in UK, where internationalization is, overseas students are always seen as some income-bringing people. Although just recently you started to change the policy, I read in the papers. Isn't that your ministers will reduce the numbers of international students?
Oh, massively.
Good for us.
Possibly. Possibly.
Okay.
An example of the UK destroying a very successful industry. But we've lots of experience of that.
And we in Germany would never have said it is an industry. That would be a sin to name it an industry. So if you're coming from a publicly funded institution, you would say, first of all, you'd say we make internationalization for better preparation of for the global labor market. That was some main reasons, and therefore, whatever you then state, let's say we have some more international education in content-wise, in the curriculum, and that should be done by the professors anyhow. It shouldn't need a strategy, but maybe if you have some international cooperations, that will be forced by that cooperations. And coming from that, you would state maybe that more international experience for the students can be better and can be strengthen their preparedness for the global labor market. And then we can also talk about internationalization at home maybe. But if you're if the fees are playing an important role, so if private money is an important part of your business case, then you will say all the same, but of course more international student paying fee is another rank in your priority list. And that creates, that differs in the perspective at the end. And of course, language is one of the important matters. I'm not sure whether you have touched that entirely so far. In Germany, it's an important point because we think we are such a big country, we can't just change to English programs entirely. Of course, we stick to our own language. The smaller countries, when you have the English-speaking countries, they have an advantage, of course. And a lot of smaller countries are going to English programs because they are knowing that the people don't want to learn their own the international students don't want to learn Netherlands or Lithuanian or whatever it is. And that creates a big difference sometimes you can see, I have some figures about that. You can see that we are in Germany have on the bachelor level very, very few international students because we are offering very few international English taught programs. And on the upper level, even more. What are the instruments and leverages? You might have mentioned a lot of them. I just put them on that slide. Cooperation partners for teaching and research, double degrees, joint degrees, international exchange programs, and free moving activities, internationalization at home, international degree seeking students. And the fee-driven universities are doing all the same, but maybe in a different perspective. You can see in Germany we have some fourth of our system is privately in numbers of institutions. We have 420 or something higher education institutions, 110 or so are private, but only covering some 7% of the student body. So the public universities are the big ones. But we can see that the private institutions in Germany are doing just the same as the public ones, but mostly more professional, because they see the business case behind. I'm not really sure. I'm just thinking about the forgery point. Of course, the private ones have the bigger conflict in that respect. They can't afford the public institutions in Germany afford that it lasts long before they are answering the acceptance or the application, and the private ones are trying to strengthen that process and to quicken and to fasten it, and that creates sometimes a little bit a problem in that respect might be. What we dealt with in the recent years very intensively is that we see there's a new phase talking about internationalization, because in the last 15 years everybody talked about the increasing numbers, and more we are coming to talking about the impact of internationalization. Does that really help? I will give you an example. The number one target for Erasmus exchange students in Germany is Spain. And maybe it's not the reason that the Spanish programs are the very best in the world, and the Spanish labor market is offering the best perspectives, but maybe it has something to do with weather and wine. And so therefore it's not enough to ask the students, how was it? Because everybody is asking, fine, I gained a lot on something. So we invented some more sophisticated methods to measure what is the real impact of study exchange, of internationalization activity for the students and for the education. And we did that for the European Commission. You can read this Erasmus impact study where we tried it in big scale with some 70,000 students. And we created our own instrument in that respect to measure the impact of student exchange. And I think we are now in the phase where we have to go down to that questions. If language have been already discussed here so intensively, then I will just be very quick on that. We saw in Germany that the change in the programs into English created much more problems than we anticipated. Because normally everybody is stating that English is no problem for everybody in the universities, but if you really ask a student about the quality of the lectures, and if you really ask the lecturer about the quality of the discussions of the students, then you see some problems. There's a study coming from Finland stating that point of problem, that in the English-spoken master programs, English-taught master programs, the level of discussion is not equivalent to the mother tongue speaking. And my point here is that we not strictly enough often come back to the point that speaking another language on a level that you are able to make a scientific argument in that foreign language is a big step from just knowing another language and being able to express. So this creates an important difference, I think. You see these figures I mentioned. We have some 5% international students in Germany in bachelor level. On master level, some 18%. This is art degrees. This is including also something like design and so. If you're looking strictly for music programs, we have some 50 and 60% international students, and PhD level some 20 and more. Big point is interculturality. With dealing with different cultural backgrounds. In Germany, you have some funny experience with Chinese students going in a dormitory, cooking. The German students are trying to socialize with the Chinese, which doesn't work out. They tend to stick together, the Chinese one, cooking more. It smells a little bit for strong herbs. After some weeks, the first Germans are leaving the dormitory. More Chinese are coming in. So the Chinese are cooking out the German students of the dormitories. So you know a lot of these funny stories about intercultural conflicts. Or the Africans in the dormitories tend to communicate much louder than the Germans are used to. And that creates a lot of frictions. And you have to try to deal with that. And then again, even in that respect, language skills are coming up. There's a study in Australia that Chinese students, when they start their studies in Australia, they're on a higher level in English command than after 3 years studying in Australia. Because they are studying in Chinese in Australia, talking only together each other, and language skills are declining. So there's a lot of these challenges dealing with interculturality in the internationalization in the student body. We picked up some figures of the Baltic states. This is The figure, the years are missing. It was, no, it was 2006 against 11. 6 to 11. Estonia 3 times. Latvia, well, 50% more, and Lithuania doubled in that period. And I think it's even increased now. It's going on. No, not right? It's too small numbers? I was. They come from Eurostats. Again?
Only my university had like roughly 500.
Yeah.
Is this degree seeking, or is this a combination of exchange and degree seeking? What are these
Well, I don't know,
numbers?
that's statistics.
I assume it's foreign students, so both.
Degree seeking
And exchange.
Okay, maybe that's thousands.
600,000? No, that sounds big. I will check that. Someone put that together, and I'm convinced it's from Eurostats, but I will check that, and I will. If you provide the final version, we will put the right figures in. But nevertheless, the tendency of the graph is right, isn't it? It's going in that direction. Yeah. You talked already about, I learned about the risk in cooperation, and you're not only looking at the figures on quantity dimensions, but also on quality. Then, of course, we are coming to these aspects, how to control quality of partner universities. And you might have discussed that. I mentioned just here some of these network activities. This very interesting one of Stanford, creating a network with partner institutions where their own programs are run, so they can send out their own students and can in that way control, of course, the quality. And the offshore campuses, it's sometimes only about money, but sometimes, of course, as well, a valid instrument of internationalization. Who of you is coming from business school? So, and you are running for EQUIS and ASCSB. Yeah, some of these accreditation programs. In what we saw in our projects, what universities are partly doing for preparation is preparation programs. We are running a pathway college, preparation college by ourselves. So that, and UK has made a big business of that. Bring in students and preparing them more than a year in language-wise and content-wise, for subject-wise for the programs. And recruiting the students from the offshore campus or from your double degree partner universities or whatever it is. And we talked just about the aptitude test. That was just a discussion before. Trying to understand better what this individual is able to, his or her capacity. A big point is that the more the first world countries are increasing international the internationalization and enrolling international students, that we are, of course, increasing brain drain phenomena in the third world. And this is here and there discussed, but nobody has a real understanding, because it's for a lot of countries it's a business to offer these places, and a lot of these people are not going back, of course, to their home country, and so we took the best ones of that of that countries out and bring them to international careers, but they're not serving their countries anymore. There is this guideline for quality provision in cross-border higher education from UNESCO and OECD, so there are some legal supports or some international supports to get some guidelines for that. Okay, these were some aspects how to mix strategic questions with internationalization. I will come back to some major conclusions. First of all, I think the language issue is of utmost importance. Internationalization means often that you talk about English programs, and you have to develop a language support for the future and current international students. If you're sending them out, you have to educate them in the foreign language, and if you are enrolling them, of course, you have to make clear that their language command is fitting to your programs. Or you teach them in your own language. Of course, you have to make clear that they are learning that language as well on the sufficient level. And then you're talking this intercultural things also in terms of integration. Interculturality, I mentioned some of the more funny stories. In Germany, only 50% of the degree-seeking students are having a graduation. And we were just becoming better. It was before only a third of the international students really finishing their study programs. So there is a big quality problem in that. And that's, of course, with all these things, it's mostly language, and it's a lot of good integration, social integration in the student body and in the whole institution. And of course, providing support for international students costs a lot of money, and in a public-run system like in Germany, this money isn't really calculated by the state. So institutions are looking where to take the money from for creating that kind of support structure. If you're fee-based, then you have another business case, and you can calculate that maybe more rationally. These are just the topics you have to mention, you have to integrate in. I will go to that final slide. The strategy on internationalization is first of all to start with an analysis of your institution. You have to come up with a kind of an overall concept, let's say a philosophy. But the big challenge in most institutions is that internationalization is something which affects the whole institution, but you need something like international strategies of each department. And that, because internationalization is in the different subjects and departments quite different, and that creates a big problem. And it is very, very complicated to invent or to create an internationalization strategy from top down or bottom up, however you make it, institution-wide. And if you look some strategy papers of universities, if you look them up, you can see that there's always a big conflict. The understanding of internationalization is in some of the institutions on the top level, and then you find some very abstract sentences, or it is in some areas of the institutions, but very seldom in a conclusive way going through the whole institution. And then you will have to translate that in particular targets and in indicators, in routines, how to control whether you meet the targets in terms of indicators, measured by indicators, so that you can control it in a way, and you can try to become even better step by step. As I mentioned before, It works better if you create acceptance and during the process. You have a strong story, as I would like to call it, and you found a way to integrate the decentered units in that strategy. Being realistic but ambitious is a point referring to a lot of institutions which states too much. I'm quite often in Southeast Asia. Whichever institution I met, they all have a 10 years development plan which states we will be among the top 20 in 10 years or something. And nobody in the institution believes, of course. So this is not the way to touch the people or to make them believe you're on the right track. So it has to be in a way believable, and that means realistic. But still, of course, you want to go forward. Ambition is not forbidden. And then the best way, I believe, is to establish something like a continuous improvement approach. Not being too strong with yourself, but trying to become better and better by looking what you achieved and how you can go on. I was asked to add some sources where you can look up more. Of course, we have these international or these European-wide associations, and EIA, for example, is offering a lot of literature, a lot of training programs, a lot of help and support for different issues here, and some of you might go to the conference of EIA anyhow. The next one is in Sevilla next year. And you can go to some training programs and go to and becoming part of these associations. Here listed up some literature, some recent literature on internationalization in higher education, and here some links to that organizations like EIA or Association of Internet Education Administrators. And that's from my side.
Thank you, Christian, very much. The question that I would have relates in particular to our local context. We talk a lot about many of our institutions being small enough to successfully compete on the European market, not to talk about the global one. So any piece of advice about the successful mergers of higher education institutions?
The successful mergers. The first advice I would give is being part of European of the European area. Okay. I don't know what it is. Is first of all, I think a big advantage, and like in all markets, it's a way of pricing. So in competing with the pricing in UK, you can offer a good price for a good product for a good price. And so this is what the Polish do, and what I think the Baltic states are heading as well. Of course, it is an interesting way to cooperate with partners for getting some of the credits that these partners are already having. For example, if you're some of the business schools who are going for accreditations like ACSB or ECFES or something, knowing that these accreditations are very valid in terms of money, and the processes are, you know about that, the processes are lasting and lasting over years. So some of the institutions are trying to cooperate with someone with quite a big reputation, who already is accredited by one of these associations, and then you can gain some of the reputation from them over in the phase where you're still on the way, like that. In terms of merger, we see what you see in Germany. We had very strong development of private institutions over the last year, because funny enough, although we had demographic development and the shrinking youth cohort, the enrollment numbers were going like that. That was a political thing mostly. And the number of the participation rate in Germany increased over the years dramatically. Now we are sending 60% to higher education. And in 1960 or something, we started with 10%, over 7% or so. And so we had a big phase of growth behind us. Now it's on the, we had the peak, and now it's going like that. In that phase, private institution came up a lot. We had some foundings, some 50, 60 foundings of private institutions over the last years, and now there's a kind of market consolidation, and bigger institutions are buying smaller ones, and creating private networks in higher education. And that creates, of course, mergers. And the one being bought are once in a while happy, and sometimes, of course, not so, because they are losing their independency, but they are surviving. So it depends on the perspective.
Okay. Any questions from the audience?
Please.
Could you please elaborate a little bit more on the results of Erasmus impact study that you've mentioned, especially what it says for internationalization strategy?
Yeah, the background, I explained a little bit what is the problem. What we did is we invented some sophisticated method based on psychometric instruments to ask the students to do a survey with the students, and the study included some 70,000 mobile students, and we found out some of the some quite interesting things. One, what astonished us, for example, is that preparation courses doesn't matter. It was for us astonishing, because a lot of universities are doing preparation courses before they're sending out the students. And in terms of the impact of the exchange experience for the student, it doesn't matter. What it matters, it made a difference in respect to the self-reflection of the students. So the students who attended a preparation course were much better aware what kind of impact the studying abroad had to their personality. But the impact by itself was not mattered by the preparation. What we, in addition, found out, not so surprisingly, is that exchange is socially biased. Of course, the exchange students are from the better off families. Was expectedly, but still embarrassing a little bit, because we created all these exchange programs for involving even the people from the not so rich families. A question from my side: is anybody of you working at an international strategy? Yeah. And is that coming up more from the top management, or is it coming up from the decentral units? Top management for rising fees. Not so. Not only. Okay.
Christian, just on the MIMO test.
Yeah.
I gather, looking at the impact study, that the students who became mobile already scored higher than the non-mobile students in respect of the characteristics that were measured by this psychometric test. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So what does that say about the mobility?
Yeah, I mean, there's a scientific number of mobile students which have only been being mobile during high school area. Yeah, so and of course, you know, students being mobile in the high school area, you can imagine which families they are coming from. So and the students having the better scores are the one, you know, willing to enter the world and are going to tend to go out. And so this is not the way to correct that problem, unfortunately.
The other sort of remark I have about the Erasmus Impact Study, the characteristics it measures, this is just a theory, are the ones that you will get whether you're prepared or not, whether you have any interventions during or after the period of mobility. In other words, we're talking about these transversal skills, and in my mind they come for free. I can't remember, did the study look at the enhancement of intercultural competence per se?
No, we looked at aspects of personality.
Yeah, okay.
So we went one level deeper, so to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because as far as I'm aware from the literature, if you want to move students on their intercultural competence, you need to preferably prepare them before, during and after to give them the right lens with which to view their experience and to actually develop on that particular aspect, just like language ability will not just happen by immersion but will benefit from educational interventions.
Yeah, in a way. But as I mentioned, the preparation is a good thing, but it's not going to the personality aspects. It's going to being more aware of what's happening with me. What's quite fine. That's still something to create.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
Now it's been a very long day for us. We've been working. And to sum up, I will be very quick. We'll try to do this in 5 minutes. So let's see how I get. And I have 4 key messages to you. So I start with the wrap-up of all of the presentations, and I will try to delineate some of the main themes that we talked today. So I would like you to first of all bring home the definition of internationalization that was kindly provided by Robert. And it reads that it should be for everybody, and that internationalization is an intentional process of integrating an international, intercultural, or global dimension into the purpose, functions, and delivery of post-secondary education in order to enhance the quality of education and research for all students and staff, and to make a meaningful contribution to society. So this is to complement all the commercial aspects that we were touching upon throughout the day, to say that internationalization is for everybody, for students and for teachers, and for institutions by the purposes defined by the institutions. We talked about the learner-centeredness in internationalization, and there the concept of learning outcomes seems to come together with internationalization awareness and building of intercultural competences. We talked about the limitations of rankings, and I would very much like to bring the message to colleagues in your institutions and to discuss this matter anytime when you discuss your promotional strategies and the marketing efforts of your institutions, how you approach the topic. And maybe you as an institutions would like to do something collectively about rankings. We talked about motivation and the importance for institutions and individuals to identify what is behind the internationalization drive for each of you. We talked about relevance. One of the messages that myself, as representative of the quality agency and the one dealing with recognition of qualifications, is bringing home, is that we have to think about the national code of ethics to deal with recruitment of international students so that it doesn't hurt the brand of Lithuanian higher education. This is very important. We then talked about the managing of partnerships and risks and the importance of defining strategies again, both on institutional level and on the national level, and the motivation behind dealing with reputation of institutions, our research targets, our curriculum offer, economic considerations, and other matters. We talked that we have to have very good reasons to internationalize because this is a costly activity. It will take time to build up, and it requires very close management in various aspects. In managing inter-partner relations, in providing what we offer academically, in dealing with financially and regulatory matters, and in focusing on student provision and support. We talked about the relevance of relating our quality strategies, or rather internationalization strategies, to overall quality strategies and institutional strategies, as just it is advised to all of us by the European Standards and Guidelines for Quality Assurance. One concept that I would very much like you to bring home is the concept of due diligence. And we touched upon this matter from various aspects, from the aspect of managing partnerships, but also in preventing fraud in higher education. We talked about the importance of cherishing staff, about thanking our staff who is performing well, and also the importance of providing training opportunities to our staff. We identified that any cultural capital that could be converted into economic capital is an object for fraud, thus including qualifications that you award and also documents that we as quality agency issue as well. We've seen that in the past. We talked about various types of forgeries and what can be done, and one of the messages to take home is that fraud has to be taken seriously and that staff has to be trained in this. And hopefully this conference contributed towards that goal. We talked about the importance of cooperation and cooperation in matters that might appear as contra our interest of cooperation, but in the long end appears serving all of us. And I mean cooperation in joint admission and protecting the brand of higher education of the country. Our last speaker talked about higher education institutions being very peculiar organizations, being characterized as professional bureaucracies, and some of the peculiarities in decision-making being tied to irrational decisions as well. We talked about the importance of the strategic story. And one thing to bring home is perhaps to study those materials that were kindly pointed to by all our speakers, and I'm very glad about this. And to wrap up the entire day, I would like to say that we had a privilege to have recording of our conference, and after the event it will be integrated. The slides provided by speakers and the recording will be kindly processed, and we are very thankful for Vilnius Gediminas Technical University for offering us this opportunity. We are using it for a first time, and we will see how it serves us, and maybe we want to do something more in the future. My second thing to ask you is to actually provide us feedback about our event, how well we did all in this conference day. Therefore, I ask you to fill in the questionnaires and to return it to our staff members. Last but not least, I would like to thank all of my colleagues at SKVC for contributing to organization of this conference. First of all, Eimantė Bogdan, Vaidas Tamošiūnas, Birutė Vaitkutė, Cornelia, can't remember the name, very recent person, just 2 days in the office, but my colleagues will say, Natalia Bogdanova, Tautvilė Tunaitienė, Rasa Paurytė, Rasa Penkauskienė, Gintarė Petrulytė. I hope I named all of them. If not, very big thanks for my colleagues and for your attendance at the event. Have a good evening.